While there are only 25 spots in the college football playoff rankings, there are a grand total of 134 schools in the FBS. That means that only a fraction of college football teams get a chance to be ranked throughout a season. Year after year, though, just about every team has had a chance to be ranked at some point in their history, and as of this year, though, 19 teams have never been ranked in the AP Top 25. A lot of those schools are new to the FBS, like Sam Houston State, Jacksonville State, and Kennesaw State, but even in the group of 5, most teams have made the AP poll. The MAC has only had 3 teams never make it, and that includes UMass, Akron, and Eastern Michigan. UMass obviously moved up to the FBS in 2012, and Akron joined in 1987. But Eastern Michigan has been playing FBS football since 1975 and has never been ranked. Today, we're going to talk about the sad state of the Eastern Michigan Eagles. We're going to go through their history as a program, why they have never been able to make it to the top 25, and why this program is extremely miserable right now. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Eastern Michigan football. So to understand why EMU has had so much trouble getting into the top 25, we first need to go back in time. In fact, let's go back to the beginning of their program. They first started in 1891 as the Michigan State Normal College Normalities, which is located in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is about 30 minutes and 35 miles away from Detroit. Football has always been an institution in the Midwest, but some schools picked it up faster than others. Eastern Michigan was actually one of the better college football teams in their conference, which was the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletics Association, and they were actually in that conference with the school that would become Michigan State. Eastern Michigan won a conference title in 1896, and they moved to the Michigan Collegiate Conference in 1927, now coached by a man named Elton Reinerson. This coach led the team from 1917 all the way to 1948, while coaching other sports like basketball and baseball occasionally too. During that time, he'd win a total of 5 conference championships, 1 in the MIAA and 4 in the MCC. When he retired in 1949, he had an overall record of 114, 58, and 15, with 3 undefeated seasons under his belt. But Eastern Michigan was starting to slow down in terms of its successes, and in 1954, it moved to the Interstate Conference, which had teams like Southern and Eastern Illinois, Illinois State, and their rivals in Central Michigan. But after winning 4 conference titles in 4 years, Eastern Michigan would go on to only win 4 more conference titles in their program's history in 1954, 1955, 1957, and 1987. In 1959, the team had a 29-game winless streak, and this was the real start of the decline for EMU. They went by the Hurons at the time, which was a reference to the Native American people that lived there. This lack of performance was due to a decision that the Eastern Michigan Athletic Department made that really hurt their image in the eyes of recruits for a long time. They were members of the Interstate Conference at the time, which was a D3 conference, and D3 teams did not award scholarships. Around that time, though, a decision was made that would have allowed some schools to offer scholarships to their athletes, but Eastern Michigan turned it down. They would go years before finally adding scholarships to their program, but the damage had already been largely done. By the time Eastern Michigan joined the MAC, which was in the FBS in 1972, their program was not much of a threat. The Hurons had another 27-game losing streak from 1980 to 1982, which was then broken by a win over Kent State. Eastern Michigan's next head coach to do much was Jim Harkema, who came to EMU from Grand Valley State back in 1982, and he would coach at EMU until 1992, including their greatest season ever in 1987, where they won a MAC Conference Championship game and their first ever bowl game, the California Bowl. But immediately after the 1987 season, his Hurons started to decline. They finished the season second in the conference in 1988 and 1989 before falling off a cliff in 7th place. After an 0-4 start in 1992, Eastern Michigan fired him. That 1987 conference title is the last title that Eastern Michigan has ever won, and it's 38 years old. In 1988, EMU decided to change their name from the Hurons after the Michigan Department of Civil Rights recommended that they do so. They ended up settling on a new name, which was the Eagles, kinda lame, and since that infamous coach, they've had 6 other guys, and none of them have had that much success. Eastern Michigan would become a basketball school more than football around the 90s, and it just became much harder to succeed there as a head coach. Eastern Michigan did not go to another bowl game until 2016, and they lost in the Bahamas Bowl. But their head coach for that game might actually be the best head coach they've ever had, and he's still there. and that's Chris Creighton. Creighton was hired by Eastern Michigan in 2014, and he was a bit of a weird hire. He'd only coached at non-scholarship universities, as he had started his career as the head coach of the Ottawa Brave, an NAIA team in Kansas, before then being at Wabash. From there, he went to Drake, who's an FCS school but didn't offer scholarships, and they were also part of the Pioneer League. Before coming to Eastern Michigan, Coach Creighton had never worked with scholarship athletes, but he had won everywhere. He went 44-22 at Drake and 65-13 at Wabash. He understood the Midwest well, and it looked to be a good fit in the MAC. After going 2-10 in 2014 and 1-11 in 2015, Eastern Michigan then went 7-6 with that bowl loss. Ever since then, they've been one of the better teams in the MAC, as they went 5-7 in 2017, then 7-6 in 2018, 6-7 in 2019, and 7-6 in 2021. They had a couple of infamous upsets during that time period, as they beat Purdue, and they also won their second ever bowl game in 2022, off of a season where they went 9-4 and actually tied for first in the Western Division, but since they didn't have the tiebreaker, they could not play for another MAC title. They then went 6-7 in 2023 and 5-7 in 2024. So far, Coach Creighton is just 57-75 at Eastern Michigan, but he's brought them to 6 bowl games, winning 1 of them. But even under Coach Creighton, it's been hard to win games at EMU, and his overall record is proof of that. He's only won more than 7 games once in 2022, and the MAC isn't exactly the most difficult conference of teams out there. What has proven to be a huge issue is the fact that Eastern Michigan shares a conference in a state with 2 other programs, and that includes Western Michigan and Central Michigan. It's hard enough for a group of 5 school to recruit against 2 teams like Michigan State and Michigan, but the fact that they're so close to 2 other teams in their own conference at their same level makes it even more difficult. Of those 3 schools, Eastern Michigan is by far the worst when it comes to football over the last handful of years, as they've only won 22 games against Western Michigan and lost 36, and then they've only won 32 and lost 64 against Central Michigan. They are definitely the little brother in the state, and they've only won the Michigan MAC Trophy 4 times since 2005, when the trophy was created. But even if you take a step back and look at the conference as a whole, they only have a winning record against 1 other team in the MAC, and that's Buffalo. They are 7-5 against the Bulls, but have a losing record against every other team in that conference. They are unquestionably the doormat of the MAC, which is a big reason why it's hard to get good talent to come to Eastern Michigan. What doesn't help is that other states they could easily take recruits from are pretty crowded too, as Ohio has 6 other schools, and any recruiting battle there will be hard to win. That's not even including Ohio State and Cincinnati, the power schools in the state, who can pick whoever they want. Pennsylvania has been difficult for them to recruit in as well, and Indiana isn't typically known for many recruits outside of the Indianapolis area. Eastern Michigan's top 2 rated recruits of all time are Kellen McDonough, a 3-star tackle in the class of 2023, and Santonio Isaac, a 3-star receiver in the class of 2025. Kellen was from Pennsylvania, and Isaac was from Florida, and you have to go to their 9th best recruit of all time, edge rusher Messiah Blair, before you find anyone from the state of Michigan. On top of that, it's harder to recruit players to your school if you can't get them to the NFL, and Eastern Michigan has struggled with that. Eastern Michigan's football stadium is now named Crosby Field after Max Crosby, who's probably the highest profile player Eastern Michigan has. Their only other alumni in the NFL Hall of Fame are George Allen, and only 8 former Eagles are currently on NFL rosters, and only 2 of them, Max Crosby and guard Andrew Wiley, are starters. You'd think it'd be easy to get some solid recruits from places like Detroit, which is only a half-hour away, but it's really been Michigan's territory for a while. Ann Arbor is only 45 minutes away, and it's all very short drives. Eastern Michigan has lived pretty much its entire life in the shadow of the Wolverines, and that's something that's had both an effect on the recruiting and on their fans. A vast majority of their fans cheer for Michigan as well, which makes sense because they're the bigger school and just 10 minutes away from campus. It's hard to get recruits to come to a school and play in a stadium that seats 26,000 people when most of the fans don't even care. They've never sold out the stadium once, with the highest attendance coming in 2008 and 87% capacity for their rivalry game against Central Michigan. Sadly, Eagles fans just don't care. That creates a whole host of recruiting challenges for a head coach, and when you can't get good talent to consistently come to your school, even as a MAC school, it'll be hard enough to win games to get you ranked. MAC schools don't normally earn a ranking either, and it takes a really good MAC team till the end of the year to even get there. I remember those old Northern Illinois teams, and Toledo's also done it a couple of times too. Eastern Michigan is one of a few of those MAC programs that hasn't put together a double-digit winning season, and honestly, I don't know if I see them doing it anytime soon. Maybe Coach Creighton can finally turn it around again, but he struggled at times to keep them above 500, and it's tough to win there. Overall, we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with Eastern Michigan, but it's been tough sledding for them. They're the worst team in the state, they're 10 minutes away from Michigan, they can't recruit, and they've never been ranked. It's hard to say that Eastern Michigan isn't one of, or if not the most miserable teams in college football, but recent memory has been a little bit more kind to them. But what do you guys think? If you're an Eastern Michigan fan, I want to hear your insight as to why you guys can't get any better, and what team should I profile next? You guys really enjoyed my video about Ohio, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one as well. And if you did, be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out my other videos on the end screen, including my video about Ohio. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.